Hello, this is Jamie Magrich. Welcome to Jamie's Craft Table. Today I'd like to show you how I made this card. It's really quite simple, so let's get started. I'm going to be using the Thoughtful Blooms and the Scripty 3D embossing folder. For inks I have Pear Pizzazz, Rococo Rose, Soft Suede. You're going to need a pair of snips, the Darling Label punch, which came out of a punch pack, I think, and Small Bloom. This one you can get free along with the stamp set through Celebration with a qualifying purchase. This is a $100 purchase and the stamp set is a $50 purchase. You're also going to need some of the crinkled seam binding, some of the holiday rhinestone basic jewels, and a few dimensionals. Okay, for paper, I have a scrap of Pear Pizzazz, I have a scrap of Blushing Bride, I have a 3 1/4 inch square of Blushing Bride, I have a scrap of white, I have a 4 by 5 1/4 inch piece of white, which I've run through the Scripty embossing folder. I have a piece of 4 1/8 by 5 3/8 piece of white, a piece of Blushing Bride, which is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and a piece of thick, which is 5 1/2 by 8 1/2, scored and folded at 4 1/4. Let's put these pieces aside so I know where they are, and let's get started. First thing I'm going to do is take this piece and bring in this Darling Label punch. Now I probably could just do it out of the layer. Well, why not I go ahead and do that? We'll just cut out, I need 4 of them. Just want to make sure I'm far enough away from the edge that it's not going to show. Okay, so I'll put that aside because I still need that, and I'm done with this punch. Okay, and this piece, I'm going to bring in the, oh, I forgot to say, you're going to need a sponge of some sort. This is our Stampin' sponge. Comes round. I cut it in like 6, 8 pieces. Cut it in half, and then I cut it in half again. Okay, and I'm going to bring in the soft suede ink. Let's move this so I don't get it inky. I'm going to ink up my sponge. Let's move this too so I have a... And then I'm just going to lightly sponge over the top of this. It's going to bring out the words so you can see it, and then it's also going to define the edges a little bit. Make it look a little antique-y or rusty or rustic. You don't want to go too heavy because you don't want the background as dark as the words. Or you could have started, I suppose, with a darker color paper, but I kind of like this effect. You don't need a lot of ink. You do want those words to pop out a little bit. And then I came back and actually added more ink to the edges. One more side. Okay, then we're done with that. I'll bring this back in. We're done with the soft suede ink. And we're going to bring in the small bloom punch. We're going to punch out 4 of the flowers. Okay. Now we're going to bring in this stamp. I don't know if you can tell what it is. Let me bring in the stamp set so I can show you. This one right here. I'm going to stamp that in the center of each one of these flowers. It's just going to give it a little bit of something else. Okay, and I'm going to use the Rococo Rose for that because it's a little bit darker than the, I didn't want to go tone on tone. I wanted a little bit of definition there. So we're just going to line up those. It's like a little star, kind of matches. See? Okay. Okay. Wipe off my hand because I think I got ink all over it. Right now I'm going to bring in the pear pizzazz. Come on. And I'm going to bring in this stamp, a little leaf. It's meant to be a 2-step stamp where you stamp the color inside. I just want this piece. And I'm going to stamp 4 of those onto this pear pizzazz piece. And I'm using the pear pizzazz ink this time. So I'm going to stamp 4 of them. Okay. Then I'm going to bring in my snips. And I'm going to fussy cut those out. So I'm just going to cut right up to the line. And for the sake of time, I've already done that. Got them right here. Okay. Now, I'm going to bring in our bone folder. You can do it with your fingers as well, but I'm going to turn those over so the stamp side is down. I'm just going to give those petals just a tiny bit of a curl. See, I'm holding the flower with one hand and I'm putting the paper on the bone folder, holding it against the bone folder with my thumb, and just like curling ribbon, just pulling that paper through my fingers in the bone folder. That just gives it a little bit of a curl. You can also just do it like this with your fingernails if you want to. But there's lots of different ways to curl the flowers. Just want it to have a little bit of something. One more. Okay. Now we can assemble our card. I'm going to actually add these rhinestones in the center of these. Oops. Oh, let's bring in the Take the Pick tool. Might help. Okay. I'm just going to take your pick tool, and I'm going to push on that rhinestone until it pops off the paper. And I'm going to stick it down. I'm using these gold colored ones or yellow ones. Those champagne colored ones would probably work too, but I don't have any of those. So, okay, Let's bring in all of our elements. I'm going to bring these in. And I'm just going to use a little tiny dot of glue on the back. And put one in the center of each one of these little punches that we did. Right in the center. If it's not perfect, that's fine, but okay, then we're going to take our little leaves. We're just going to add one little dot of glue on the back of them as well. And tuck the leaves in. Or you can do it in the same spot in each one. It doesn't matter because we can turn these. They're symmetrical. So one. Really shedding. Spring must be coming. My dog's shedding, I'm shedding. He goes in clumps, big clumps of fur. It's really quite humorous. All that undercoat, that heavy winter undercoat is falling out. Alright, so that's that part. Set those aside for a minute. Let's glue this part together. So we're going to glue this blushing bride piece onto the front of our card base. It's the same size as the card base. As the card front. It should be exactly the same size. I'm lining up my card onto my table and then lining up those edges. That should make it perfect. Pretty much. Okay. And this piece is going to go on top of there. It's only 1/8 of an inch smaller than the previous layer. So it's going to have that 1/16 of an inch border. Line up 2 sides, 3 sides, and then set it down. Okay. Alright, we'll set that aside for a minute. We're going to bring this piece in. Make sure our words are going the right direction. We're going to bring in our 3 1/4 inch square. We're going to mount that centered on the top portion of our card, so it's got an equal distance here, here, and here. We're fairly close to that. We're going to put dimensionals on the back of these. And before we stick them down, we're going to kind of figure out where we want them. I kind of did it so that the leaves kind of made a circular pattern around the card. Kind of made your eye flow around the page a little bit. The direction of the leaf just kept you moving around the card. Okay, so those are going to go there. And then I took the little thank you that comes in that Thoughtful Blooms and the Rococo Rose ink. Before I have those all glued in, I'm going to stamp this thank you right in the center here. Move a go away so I kind of get an idea. Right there. Perfect. Okay, now let's glue those little squares down. You're going to have the same distance top to bottom and between them. That's basically how I figured it out. So just take the back off of one. I'm going to do this. I'm going to bring in a tweezer. Helps me to hold it a little bit straighter or a little bit steadier. I'm going to put that one down, the first one down. It's not perfect, but that's alright. Now this one, I want to make sure that these kind of match a little bit. There we go. One more. Okay. Now we're going to bring in our ribbon. Bring in a snail. Snip off the ribbon a little bit longer than my card front here. Flip this over. Put some adhesive here on the back. Put the ribbon across the front. Tack it on both sides. Make sure it's tight. Kind of bring in my card base. Make sure I put glue over the ribbon. Glue this down on top of that. Again, there's just going to be that tiniest little border. Oh, I apologize that I turned that off. Okay, now I'm going to tie a bow with this ribbon. Come on. Then I'm going to bring in a glue dot. I'm going to roll the glue dot into a log. Place it on the center here, right underneath the... Attach my ribbon to it. Okay, there we go. There's our card we just made together. Here's the one I did previously. Thank you so much for joining me at Jamie's Craft Table. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I hope you can find a little bit of time to play with some stamps, ink, and paper.